When I think about what I wanted my players to most leave Oklahoma with, what I wanted my children, I have 2 children, what I wanted them to leave our home with was confidence, a sense that they could do whatever they needed to do, whatever that was. And I think the only way you get real confidence is to do hard things. It comes from demonstrated ability. My big takeaway from that is that discipline and work ethic and achievement mindset is portable. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's whatever you want to do. It applies when you're building your family. It applies in your spiritual journey. It applies everywhere. You build that scaffolding, and then you can climb up it again and again and again, whatever it is that you do.
So, Sherri, we already started to have a little pre-conversation, and you noticed the Believe poster behind me of Ted Lasso. So are you a fan of the show, or did you watch the entire series? Where did you end up there?
Several times I watched the entire series. I'm a card-carrying member of his fan club. No, I just love it. Favorite scene of all time is the dart scene in the bar. It's just the greatest. If you can't teach from that, I think every coach can grab that and take it into their locker room and teach.
Yeah, I think it's such an amazing show. Number one, I've been a soccer fan my entire life. Grew up playing in a house where my dad was a basketball, football guy and loved baseball, knew nothing about soccer, which is pretty much, I think, why I chose it long term. It was a great decision. But just in sports in general, the correlation between great coaching and culture and helping people see the greatness in themselves. I mean, this is really what you did over your entire career, I would imagine, and with your success that you had in Oklahoma and all your success in life and coaching, I would imagine that correlation is really relatable and fun to watch.
Oh, it's the reason you do it. There's no doubt. You forget really quickly. The games that you won, I have no clue what my record is. Absolutely no idea. Even the championship games, they're kind of fuzzy, but you remember those moments with kids when a light bulb went off or when they chose to go left instead of right, and those are just, watching them. I sent a happy birthday today to one of my players and said, "Send me a pic of the kids," and she sent me a pic of these 2 little precious babies, toddlers, I should say, and that's the stuff. That's the stuff. That's why you do it.
Yeah, it's funny. I've had a couple of conversations on this podcast that started with Ted Lasso because of the poster. And what I love is the believe, the whole message of not only believing in yourself, but believing in your teammates, believing in us as a culture, as a team. There's so much involved there. My favorite line is be curious, not judgmental. So that's the one that I love the most. And I think it's something we could all relate to today. The more curiosity we have, the less judgmental we're going to be and the better off it is. What did you, when you watch a show like that, did you find yourself, are you a Ted Lasso style coach? Is that what kind of connected you to the student body and kind of helped build the culture of all those successful years in basketball?
Oh, don't we all wanna be that Ted Lasso coach? That's who we strive to be and who, when we close our eyes at night, think that we maybe are. Sometimes I was, sometimes I wasn't, I'm sure, but, by and large, that was the goal. And what I love, so much about that show is how he, creates these scenarios within the environment in order to teach. So kind of an atypical take on, teaching them a new play or teaching them how we're gonna win this game that we're not supposed to win. He just kind of came through the side door, or maybe the window up in the attic sometimes, and found a way to reach his guys. And always, I think at the crux of everything, that fictional coach does in that show is compassion. That's at the crux of everything that he does, and wanting people to be the best version of themselves. And that's certainly what you wake up and go to work thinking every single day.
How how effective do you feel that style of coaching is today? And have you seen a change at all in and maybe what's receptive from the kids to what was as receptive in over the years of coaching?
Oh, certainly, big change. It's I think, more relatable now than it's perhaps ever been, although I think it would have worked 1,000 years ago. It's a proven philosophy that if you can connect with someone, you can help shape and change their behavior. So that part is tried and true. But I think his methodology and his approach is the way you have to approach young people today. I think the days of Vince Lombardi and Fire and Brimstone are probably gone, and we've got to find a different entry point. And he certainly does that with a little bit of humor, a whole lot of self-deprecation, a whole lot of creativity, and it's just I think for even if you're not a coach, even if you're not an athlete, you can watch that show, and when you turn it off, you never want it to be over, but when you turn it off, you think that, "Yeah, I probably can do whatever that thing is I need to do." And if that's not the essence of coaching, I'm not sure what is.
So powerful. I was on a plane. I'm on a plane a lot, unfortunately, but I was on a plane and I was watching, you get to the last like 20 minutes of the flight and you don't want to start something new. You got to put away your stuff. So I put on the first episode of Ted Lasso, and I've probably seen that episode a bunch of times now because of this exact thing. And he sips on the sparkling water and he spits it out in the press conference at the very first episode. And then he tries tea and he's like, oh my gosh, it's as bad as I remember. There's so many little things that were things that I think I missed the first time around
Sure.
that were also sharp and such great humor. And I think that it's a feel good show. I think people forget how nice it is to watch something and actually feel good when you turn it off. When they ended that episode, when they ended the final episode, I was like, man, a happy ending. That is very difficult to find nowadays, isn't it?
How novel, right?
I need that. I need more of that in my life, and I'd watch more stuff. I mean, I love a good deep drama, don't get me wrong, but I definitely like to feel like the right kind of coach, the right kind of players are winning in life. That's that cultural thing that I think we all love watching.
Oh, yeah. That's the happy ending we're all about. Unfortunately, it's not always the case that the good culture or the coach that's taken that road wins in the end. That's not always the case. But the takeaway is the win is not the score. It's not the championship. It's not about that season or that journey even for that team. It's stuff that is planted that comes up years and years and years later and continues to fuel those people. So I think you see some of that in it as well, and that's why coaches do what they do.
Did you find yourself going into coaching because you were drawn to lead? Did you find yourself going to coaching because of love of the sport? What drew you originally to that path in life?
Yes, and yes. I was a point guard, so I was bossy from the word go. I fell in love with basketball in the 3rd grade. Nobody in my family played. I went to a little camp and just fell in love with the ball and all you could do with it and how much better you could get with it by yourself. In other sports, somebody has to throw it to you so you can hit it, or somebody's gotta catch it if you're tossing it to them, and in basketball, you can dribble around and shoot and go get your rebound and do it all by yourself, and I loved that, independence, I guess, that ability to sort of control my own destiny in terms of how good I could get with that ball in my hand. And then, when I started playing competitively, I just loved the being able to organize the troops and take the floor and lead. I did. There was something about that that I really felt drawn toward and, enjoyed. And so I, went to college and said I wanna be a teacher and a coach because I could not imagine a day without a basketball in my hand. I'd had one in my hand since the 3rd grade. I don't know what else to do if I don't have a ball. So I was a high school teacher and a basketball coach for 9 years, and, then got the job at the University of Oklahoma, and so literally until about 5 years ago, I 4.5 years ago maybe, I, touched a ball every single day. I had a basketball in my hand every single day. So, it's been a tremendous vehicle for my life. I have been so fortunate, to not only play with great people and play for great people, but to coach great people and coach alongside great people. So, that's what it's all about, the folks you meet along the way.
Yeah, that's great. It's basketball isn't the kindest sport as we age. My dad grew up playing and grew up in a country town, taught himself how to play basketball. He used to play at all the city parks in Virginia Beach and Norfolk and in our area. And I mean, he ran games 2 to 3 times a week with guys in gyms and I grew up around basketball all the time. I played, but I wasn't good enough and I didn't put a lot of time into it. And I put a lot of time into it, but I always loved how the game flowed, how you could walk to a park, you could be somebody that they didn't think would be good enough to play, and then all of a sudden you end up running 6 games in a row. And it was just this openness. And to your point, shooting the ball by yourself and just being in your inner thoughts and being able to say, okay, I'm going to make 14, 15 in a row before I go in, and then sitting out there for an hour because you didn't do it. And so you kept going back and starting, you're building that discipline. And but watching my dad play into his 50s and then not be able to walk as well and the knees being beat up, and I played with him probably towards the latter part of his, it might have been the last couple times he played. I was playing in a gym with some friends from work. It was super fun. And I remember him jumping, and I don't know that he got this high off the ground. And for those of you listening, I'm holding up a very small inch or two. Um, but the tenacity, the ability to move the ball, the things I remember seeing him do on the court were so fun. I just feel like basketball has an art to it that when you move without the ball, there's so much to learn in not just the individual stuff, but just the grace. And I remember just thinking, man, I remember, Dad, when you could jump and just block anything that came your way. And so it was really fun to think, every time I have a basketball conversation, I love that because I was around it so much, and watching his love for the game and then listening to you talk about never wanting to leave a basketball from the third grade. I can understand and see how that is. And then you made it a career, and not just a career, but a highly, highly successful one, leading people for many years. And now you get to see the fruits of your labor from these pictures of the little toddlers and the next generation. So walk us through the years at Norman, and how did your career kind of shape you over those years to get to where you are today? Because now you're not just leading a sport or sports or just young women, you're leading people across the country in coaching and all these same lessons that you've had for all these years, correct?
Yeah, well, first of all, I wanna back up to what you were talking about, in terms of basketball as we age. Yeah, I have not played in years, and I don't need to. I have no lateral movement left. I play tennis now. It's completely different. It's great, but basketball, when you play at a pretty high level, my level might have been, just kinda sort of above medium. But anyway, whatever level I was playing at, I can't do that anymore, and so, you can't jump, and it's a game that's very taxing on you physically. But you mentioned it being artistic, and there's actually a story in the book, The Compost File, about Coach Knight and, how I learned from him how to run motion offense, and when I discovered what true motion offense was, how I just thought, "This is poetry. This is athletic poetry. This is like my nirvana," this athletic thing, and then all this beauty aesthetically all bundled together, and I get to coach this for a living. I mean, it was just the biggest high to be able to try to convey those things that I learned from people like Coach Knight to the players that I had, and teaching it was and probably will always be my most favorite thing on the planet, to do. But you mentioned the discipline that's involved with going out and shooting a ball, and, all of us who were serious players, who wanted to be good can relate to staying in the gym until you've made 10 free throws in a row or 10 swishes in a row with no rim, no nothing, or 15 right and 15 left going to the rim. Just all those things that we did, we created in our minds, to stretch ourselves, basically. And when I stopped coaching and sat down to write, I thought, "Okay, this is a, 180. This is a different life." And then I thought, I'm sitting in my backyard, typing on my laptop, and I'm like, "This is absolutely like being in the driveway when I'm 15, trying to make 10 clean free throws in a row before I go in the house and do my homework." It's the same grind. You get up every day and you go to work, you do the work. And some days it's easy. You go to the gym some days and the ball comes off your
You
hand like
feel
butter.
it. Yeah.
Oh, it's just the best thing ever. And then some days you go and it feels square and you can't you spend more time chasing your rebound than you do actually getting shots up. Writing's the same way. Some days you sit down and you're like, "Okay, that was a good paragraph. That was a good sentence. That's here we go." And then some days it's just like you're driving a stick shift and you don't know where the gears are. It's just crazy. And so the parallels, and I think my big takeaway from that is that discipline and work ethic and achievement mindset is portable. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's whatever you wanna do. It applies when you're building your family, it applies in your spiritual journey, it applies everywhere. You build that scaffolding, and then you can climb up it again and again and again, whatever it is that you do. So, those things stuck out when you were talking about your dad and going to the gym, and it made me think about in college, we would have Friday nights. I went to an NAIA institution in Oklahoma City, and there are several in the area, and we had this huge rivalry. We were all in the same conference. But on Friday nights, we had open gym out of season. And so it rotated from nobody had cell phones or email to send it. You just word of mouth, you told each other, "Okay, we're gonna be at Southern Nazarene tonight. We're gonna be at UCO tonight," whatever. Those guys and girls, and we all played collegiately at our respective schools, and you would go and you try to get in the game, and there were so many people there that you fought to win because you didn't wanna sit out. You never wanted to sit out, you wanted to run the whole night, and some of my fondest memories of the game actually were those Friday night open gyms. Not necessarily the championships we won or those big rivalry games where it was a packed house, just those open gyms where nobody was watching and nobody remembers the score afterward, but you're just competing and stretching yourself and trying things and, just such fun, and I think built those muscles that enabled me to do hard things when I got older, and, I appreciate that so much, so thank you for taking me down memory lane because I was seeing some of those, old gymnasiums as you were talking. Now we'll go back to whatever question it was you asked me.
Yeah, well, forget the question because you answered it so much better. And for everyone listening, what I love about great coaches is you're a great listener. So, I went on and got deep into a story, and you pulled three or four things out. All that you checked in your head were things that were worth mentioning, from the Bobby Knight discipline and the third grade left and right. My dad used to teach me. He was a great teacher in basketball, and he would teach me that you don't need to, everyone likes to start away from the rim and work their way to it, and he was like, you need to start close to the rim and work your way out and warm yourself up. And if he got warmed up, I couldn't beat him. And so it is fun. And the art of the game, what I love is I played soccer, and again, my
Mm.
my oldest son's a Division I college soccer player. My youngest son plays for the DC United Academy. He moved away at 16. I have two athletes um, that are very high level athletes, and they're way better than me. And as far as success and where they've accomplished, but a lot of it came from mindset. A lot of it came from access and opportunity. And my father grew up without any of that, like zero. And so everything was earned or grinded for. So there was a love of a game and an art to the game that I could see watching it. And I remember feeling old enough that I could get out there and play with them. And it was hard, but it was fun. I also learned to play the sport of soccer and to teach my boys things that came from your game.
Oh,
The game of
soccer's
basketball.
basketball. Soccer is basketball with your feet.
It's it.
Totally.
When the cutting, the running,
Angles.
none of the kids understand that when you move off the ball with a basketball, the more you move off the ball, the more you're going to create space, wear out your defender, create an opportunity, an open lane. I mean, driving, what my father used to say as a point guard, create. Your job is to create. You have to drive the lane and create. And it's the same in every sport, in every similar sports. But I mean, it's so fun. So when you're talking about it, I'm actually going down memory lane too, because I think I practice basketball more than I practice soccer, which will
Mm.
explain a lot of the disconnects. But my boys don't do that. They're the opposite. And it's fun to watch them grow and experience things. What have you seen so I'll ask a question now just because I'm curious. What have you seen um, in the sports world today, now that there's been such a shift in NIL and the transfer portal? So I have a son who's a sophomore, So he was a freshman during COVID in high school, and then when he came in as a freshman, it was the first real mass transfer portal year. So it was very unique. Average age of a college player in most sports now has elevated significantly. Freshmen are a little less attractive than they were, and so it's changed a little bit of the game. But I'm just interested in your feeling of kind of what you've seen, how you feel it's positive, negative, agnostic. I'm just interested in your concepts here.
I'm not agnostic about much. I will say, though, I have very mixed emotions about the state of collegiate athletics right now. We saw, I'm gonna say it's probably been 10, 12 years ago now, and when I say we, I mean a lot of coaches at the Division I level, through our convention, our Women's Basketball Coaches Association, and several white paper studies and conversations, we could see this coming, the potential, maybe not exactly what it looks like, but this pay for play, and we all, I can't say all, there were a large majority of us who were certainly in favor of compensation for athletes, but we didn't want it to be pay for play. And we felt like the line between the two was so thin unless there was some pretty complex or at least well thought out um, infrastructure for that, it would immediately, any sort of revenue would immediately become played for pay for play. And we thought it might take, once it goes into effect, it might take a year or so to turn into that. It took like 3 weeks to turn into pay for play. It just went nuts. And it's a cautionary tale when you think about higher education. And I try to remove it from the little athletic lens, and it is happening on college campuses, and college campuses are charged with educating students. And so, as a piece of the higher education model, you have to factor in some sort of balance between those two things. One cannot succumb to the other, and it's a rail that's difficult to walk, I think. I love the fact that student athletes have some opportunities now that they should have gotten a long time ago. Um, I hate what it does to this idea of team, because team is sacred to me, and the fact that you float in and out based on, lots of times, not all the time, it's not exclusive, but lots of times, to the highest bidder, um, I think is tough. You mentioned freshmen maybe not being quite as valuable now as they used to be. Um, I think about there are just I think about, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Lanish Caulfield was a kid from Ada, Oklahoma, which is a smaller town about an hour outside of Norman, where the University of Oklahoma is. And Nish came in as a freshman on our basketball team and was good enough to play, but still a freshman. Didn't thought she played hard, didn't have any idea what playing hard really was. She could really get to the rim, but she wasn't a great shooter from the perimeter, and so she needed those skills shined up. Just a great defender, but she fouled too much. All those things that happen with freshmen, right? She became one of the greatest players to ever play in our program. Led us to She was a junior on that Final Four team, our first Final Four team that played for a national championship against Connecticut. Niche became there was a moment between her sophomore and junior year where the tables just turned, and she went from being a really good college basketball player to a great college basketball player. I don't know that that would have happened without 2 years of a good bit of ick. She played well, but there were icky times, and she had to fight her way through that as a freshman, and it wasn't something that could just be fought through on the practice court every day. She needed to have to do it when the lights were on and everybody was looking. And that growth, both as a basketball player, I'm talking about her skill set and her basketball play right now,
Sure.
but it was also internal. It was also as a person, a maturity level, a growth as a human in terms of capacity and what I expect from myself, how I choose to behave. All of those things grew exponentially in those freshman and sophomore years. And I wonder now where that growth is taking place and how that's happening, because of all the shuffling around and because of the opportunity that is not given to 18-year-olds, because there's a 25-year-old on the roster and they're by and large going to perform a little bit better. So it's dicey. I'll just say that. It's a dicey concept, and I pray for our student athletes who are in the throes of it, because athletics it's such a molding, shaping, um, entity. You go through it's like a cauldron. You go through it and you come out different than you were when you went in. And I hope that there are still the opportunities for them to go through the cauldron and come out different in a really good way.
I think, excuse me, as a father navigating this and having someone who is being recruited, and then it slowed dramatically because of the changes, and I think the coaches didn't really know how to receive that. If I could go take a transfer portal kid from a Duke or a Clemson who's not getting any playing time and bring him to a mid-major and make him the star, that's more interesting than a freshman, and it's like that in a lot of sports. But what I will say is, eventually strategy can shift. And so you'll find other programs that can focus on the freshmen and develop them. And that will allow new coaches to come out and the system will shift. And I'm hopeful that, we find some happy median. There has to be some disconnection between the unlimited transferring. I think there's some rules there, but it's a little wide. And I'd like to see it maybe organized a bit. But I do think everything kind of works its way out in some ways. Like you said, the development of the freshmen, sometimes it's their own inner excellence I was talking about Jim Murphy and having him on the show, and that inner game of becoming an adult where you have to kind of figure out what was holding you back as a young person, maybe how to break free. And then you as the coach, I mean, you are the professor, you're the teacher, you're the coach, you're guiding them. A lot of times you're the parent that they never listen to. And so now you're able to pull that out of her, which is what's so fun to me, is to watch that them break out of that cocoon. And we do it in business as well. I mean, it's not much different in the realm that you get someone young and they come in and they're not ready, and you kind of work with them, and then all of a sudden you see them just become this amazing performer.
Mhm.
And there's nothing better than that. And so hopefully there's the programs that will be able to, maybe they aren't able to keep up financially, but they'll be able to cultivate those, that youthful energy that you're talking about, that maybe she wouldn't have found had she not had those 2 years of work ethic.
And, she takes with her, as do those student athletes who spent their four-year careers at Duke or Stanford or Michigan or wherever, um, a loyalty and an a attachment to her university that I fear will be long lost. The way we feel about our school, what that jersey means to us. I think some of that has to, just by virtue of definition, weaken when you've worn 4 jerseys. I
Yeah.
mean, who are you gonna be loyal to? The last one? The first one? I don't know. I don't know how that works. So, um, I guess I ache in an old school kinda way for some of that stuff.
Well, when you saw in men's basketball, you kind of saw the great coaches all leave at the same time. Coach K, I think Izzo stayed, but there were several of those coaches that Roy, all those guys, they kind of all separated at the same time. Right as this was coming in, it was almost like, all right, we're not going to be a part of this next iteration. It's going to be very, very difficult. And other coaches have really thrived in it. But it's probably more timing. And I think I look, we all kind of yearn for the old school. Sometimes I think, it's always fun to look back and be like, well, if we just did things the old way, but who
Yeah.
knows?
There's a great deal to be said for progress as well, there's a lot of really good stuff, happening in collegiate athletics as well. It's just this is such a violent shift that I think everybody, coaches, administrators, parents and athletes, everybody's just trying to find a place where they can grip and figure things out. And as you said earlier, there will be a shift back toward the middle somewhere where it's something that everybody can get their arms around.
Yeah, I was really super proud of my son watching him navigate it, where, you go you it's also a very adult thing to do, deciding where you want to go, how you're going to play, when you're going to do it. And he actually had an ACL injury this summer playing and preparing. So he's now got a whole nother challenge to get back onto the field. But all of it's part of growth. And so when you look at excuse me, when you look at that journey that you were describing of the young lady who kind of went through that, sometimes it's injury, sometimes it's internal, sometimes it's personal, whatever it is, it's overcoming that is allowing them to get to the point in life where they have that happy family you described early on in the conversation, where that's the thing, that's what you're working towards, that's the goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, uh, when I think about what I wanted my players to most leave Oklahoma with, what I wanted my children, I have 2 children, what I wanted them to leave our home with was confidence, a sense that they could do whatever they needed to do, whatever that was, and I think the only way you get real confidence is to do hard things. It comes from demonstrated ability. So, I hope that when all this gets wrestled out, that there still will be that opportunity for collegiate athletes to, have to find their way through hard things. That's you mentioned the transfer portal earlier. That's often an out. That's the opposite side of doing a
Right.
hard thing, and so, I there's such growth there. No one enjoys it. Coaches don't enjoy it when athletes are going through it. Athletes sure don't enjoy it. Parents don't enjoy watching it. It's hard. Middle school's hard. Think about it. We all went through middle school. There wasn't anything fun about that, but we were growing. And that's, you come out the other side of it, and man, even though that was awful, I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it because I'm a different person now, a better person now.
Yeah, doing hard things, uncomfortable things stretches that comfort zone and allows us to strive for something different. And you talk a little bit in the book about striving and strivers, right? Define a striver for us, just because I feel like it's the definition of a high performer when you think about people that are really pushing in life.
Yeah, so the, dedication in my book is for those addicted to yet. I'm not there yet, but I'm climbing that mountain. I'm not there yet, but I'm running down that road. Not there yet, but I'm working on that essay. It's that trier aspect, you know? I mentioned earlier I play tennis now. I'm a trier. I need all those hustle points. I'll run everything down and dive if I have to. I'm a trier in the marrow of my bones, and I think that a lot of people are. Most people are. Sometimes it's latent because you just haven't found that thing that drives you yet, or maybe a situation has buried it or kind of put a cover over it for a little bit. But uh, I think all people want to be a little bit better at whatever it is they do, whether it's being a spouse or a parent or an employee or a boss, whatever. And the stories in the book are really about um, ordinary things. They're about noticing, which is the conduit to achievement, to healing, to insight, to clarity, to joy. And noticing is really at the root of all that. And so the stories in my book are about noticing. And my hope is that strivers who read it can apply it to whatever they're striving toward, whatever they're trying to do, trying to be a better mom to a teenager, you know, trying to transition from a career to a different career, or through the loss of a parent or a loved one. It's about those kinds of things. And I probably, the subtitle is for the striver in us all, but it really should have been, this is for a whole bunch of triers. Just you triers out there.
Yeah. The younger generation would call us tryhards because we try so hard.
True that.
Um, and
Too hard sometimes.
yeah, and I'm fine with it. It's funny because you mentioned earlier about sports being so important, and I think about the value that I found in life through sports. You know, I did not love math and science and regular school, but I lived for playing sports. And then even when early career, I would play, with all my friends in the area, like league soccer, and we Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then Wednesday nights, and you go to work only to get through it so that you could get to the evening and play. And I watched my dad do this. He literally played, softball twice a week, basketball twice a week, and constantly was doing stuff. And so when I look back at how important sports have been for me, my family, and then watching my sons, and it shapes them into who they are. My youngest son, the reason that I interviewed Jim Murphy on the show in Inner Excellence was because my youngest son and I were driving up, and he was going to play in a big game, and it was a week earlier that he's supposed to report, and we decided to listen to a book, and he picked the book, and the book is Inner Excellence, and so he started reading it. And he was so engulfed in reading it that I had to get engulfed in reading it. And I was reading it in a different lens. And so it was drawing us together, and the discipline, he doesn't like to read a whole lot of other things, but he loves reading mindset books, and he loves reading books that are relatable to sports. So when I think about that funnel of how important and valuable those lessons of teamwork and discipline and all those short stories that you describe in the book, these are the very things that the more we notice the value of sports, the more we can impact so many other kids that get lost along the way, because that might be all they think they're worth when there's so much more that they've learned in whatever sport they're playing.
I as you say that, I think about the number of coaches that I've talked to in the last 2 or 3 years who are transitioning out of coaching, and yet they're not ready to retire, and they don't know what to do, and the number of coaches who've said, "I don't know what I could do. I've just only coached my whole life." And I'm like, "Well, you can do anything, because when you've coached, you've done everything." It's just it's a profession that asks you to lead and teach and be involved in so many different types of things, from minute detail things like scheduling and ordering and handling things, to leading and a big vision, casting a vision, and then putting together a plan and a strategy for doing that, to actually teaching on the court, toe in step relationship. Here's what you do. So I think that there's such application for those of us who are in the profession to life outside the profession. But I've always felt like sport, regardless of what particular sport it is, sport itself is a mini life. I mean, it's where you get to go out there and try things, and you get to figure out, okay, this is a good thing to do. This is not a good thing to do. This is a terrible thing to do. I don't ever want my business to feel like this, or my family to navigate situations like that. I would rather it be, and the reverse is true as well. Oh, I want to build a home that feels like this. I want to have a family that feels like this locker room. So those lessons apply, and you're going to get it wrong some. You're going to get it right some, but it doesn't really matter when you're playing a basketball game. Doesn't really matter when you're in the middle of a soccer match. When it matters is in your marriage and with your children and your life beyond that. And so you get this marvelous breeding ground where you get to try stuff out and fail and get better at it and build muscles that you're going to need later on. And it's just preparatory. It's preparatory. I feel like an educational system without that would just have a gaping hole, because it's where things that you learn get applied, and it's where lessons are taught that you can't learn sitting in rows in a classroom.
So to your point, about not really realizing what that next chapter could be like, coming from one chapter to the next and not leveraging it. I do a ton. My day job is in mergers and acquisitions and acquiring companies and helping them, rebuild for the future, training up the next gen. It's literally like going into maybe a successful college basketball team, and they now have to transition out coaches, and we need to let the new coach come in and elevate the team, and the coach that's leaving behind has to be able to exit a hero and you come in a hero, and it's a nuance to it. But it's really interesting because there's always this kind of like third inning after they sell their company, that they feel like they've given up everything and they don't have anything else to offer, and it's like retiring coach. Or my wife was a teacher for 23 years in elementary education, and she's moving on to a new career, and she's like, what experience do I have to help all these? And I'm like, you've been doing this for 23 years. See, we don't lose the things, to your point, we don't lose the things that we've gained from point A to point C or D or F. It's the wisdom along the way that we've gained that now we can leverage in a different capacity. And last point I'll make is that my oldest son started doing TikTok lives, and they battle, like, literally think of us in these two screens, and they battle, and they battle where like people donate gifts and they gamify this thing, and I don't get it. Okay, it's super difficult, hard to explain. Here's what he did to me. When I asked him what it was, he goes, "Dad, think of it this way. I've been a leader and run teams and been on teams my entire life. A lot of the kids that are on these things have not been on teams and are searching for a way to be on teams. I build a team, battle other people, and then my team wins together. And the more I build the team, the more successful we are, the more successful I am. And that's kind of the way that it works." And I was like, okay, I kind of understand that. But if that's not the exact epitome of what you explained, where their life skills from being a teammate, building teams, knowing culture, being a leader, all kind of help to build something else that's totally different. We'll see where it goes, but it's just
Well,
it's very interesting, very interesting.
and really incredible that he was able to, um, maybe just his ability to articulate that to you, but the idea that that's what he's doing is he's building connection with people, and we all know that, 2 plus 2 no longer equals 4 when you're really part of a team, it equals, like, 87,
Yeah.
and so he's doing that in his own way through the digital community, which is super cool.
Yeah, but it's because of great coaches, because of his mother and his father and his uncles and aunt, and all the people that are a part of his life building him. He's had that experience, and now we're that poster behind me that says believe. We're like the head believers. Our job is to just tell them, hey, we believe whatever you do, go for it. And it's different, it's unique, but we got your back. Just go try it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a cool environment to watch them accomplish those things with your own kid, with your own children. Now, did your kids play sports, and did they play basketball? That's I was curious
Yes.
about this.
Yes, both did, yes. Um, Through the high school level, my son had some opportunities to go play, and he wanted to go to the University of Oklahoma, and so he did and did not play. My daughter actually played her freshman year at Oklahoma Christian, where I played, and then she was done with that, and she transferred to Oklahoma and got her degree from OU. But yes, they were both basketball players, though we did not, practice heavily in the driveway. The advantage that they did have was they always had a gym. I remember thinking when they were little, "Oh my gosh, what I would have given to have had access to the gym 24/7."
Man.
And, you grow up with that, you don't know any different. They didn't know how fortunate they were, but, it was a great way. And they both played other sports as well, but, I would say to this day, my son still loves basketball more than anything. He was a really good baseball player, but I think basketball had his heart.
Now, are they married now or no?
My son is married and has 2, little girls, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then my daughter just got married this past spring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Now, is the
Thank you.
4-year-old dribbling a basketball yet? That's the key
You know,
question.
she does not care much about balls right now, which is really hard for her Gigi. She wants to dress up like a princess, and her mother actually played for me, so my son's wife was my point guard.
Wow, that's
So we've
awesome.
got she's this little child is surrounded by athletes and balls, and she wants a princess dress, so we don't know. They become who they become, right?
Yeah, 100%. My little brother is almost 14 years younger than me, and he was married a couple years ago. He has 2 daughters under the age of 2, and he's been instrumental in helping my sons become successful in sports. He assistant coached at the high school level for my oldest son. He did one-on-one coaching with my younger son early on. My son would run him ragged. I mean, literally, Uncle Derek, what you said you were going to be here. I thought we were going to work out today. And so, but I watch him now with his 2 daughters, and we're constantly like putting a soccer ball down or a basketball, and we're trying everything. But 2 is still young, so we have time.
Yes. Yes, plenty of time.
What is this next chapter look like for you, Sherry? What are you hoping to accomplish? You launched the book. You're I know you're doing some speaking, some writing, and still coaching. What does this next chapter look like for you?
Well, it's very exciting. I just feel so blessed every single day I wake up and I'm like, "Is this really my life? This is amazing." I When I walked away from coaching, I did so because I wanted to write. It was a passion that I'd long carried in my pocket. I was a high school English teacher before I was a Division I basketball coach. I love the written word. I've written and I using air quotes where you can't see them. Here you can see them now. Um, Written in journals and in notebooks my entire life. It's I love words and I love stringing them together. And I'd always wanted to try to write, but, you got the coolest job on the planet. When you're a little girl who grows up in Southern Oklahoma and, sings the fight song and holds your finger in the air when the football team kicks off, you get to work at the University of Oklahoma and have the big corner office over the gymnasium. You kinda don't just walk away and decide to do something else, right? It's a pretty good life. And so, during COVID, and I don't know that I would have ever made the decision when I did were it not for COVID. All kinds of silver linings we all found individually, I know, in the face of that horrific thing that happened. But it slowed me down enough to realize I'm past the 50-yard line in my life, and if I wanna do something different, I probably better get about the business of doing it, and so, I decided to stop coaching and give it a shot, and it just so happened that my granddaughter was, coming that spring. She arrived just a few weeks before I resigned, and so I knew that I wanted to be a part of her life. My grandmother was a huge part of my kids' lives, as is my mother. And, I wanted to that was super important to me. So, I started to write. I wrote, a book called Rooted to Rise. That was my first. It came out in '22, I believe. And then, have been writing a weekly blog at sherricoale.com, for 4 years. When I first started writing the stories in Rooted to Rise, I had about 15 stories, and I thought I wasn't writing a book, I was just writing. I mean, literally, just went out in the backyard, opened a vein, and started writing. It was awesome. And I looked down, I had like 15, 16, 17 stories, and I was like, "Okay, this is weird. What am I gonna do with these? I don't know what to do with these." And then I kept writing, and I got to 24, 25, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if this is anything." So I emailed a literary agent and attached it and said, "Is this anything?" That was my email. "Is this anything?" And she actually read it and sent back, "It's definitely something." And neither one of us knew exactly what it was. But we put it together and Hybrid published it. And it I realized when I had finished it that I had written a giant thank you letter to the people who had made me who I am. It's a story about the intersection of people in your life, big crashes that you notice and little shoulder brushes that maybe you don't at the time, but they make you who you are. And that was the first book. The literary agent said, as we try to get this out into the world, I need you to do two things. I need you to get involved in social media, and I need you to write a weekly blog so that your words are out there. And I said, "Awesome." And I wrote the weekly blog and did not engage in social media. I said 2 out of 3 ain't or 2 1 out of 2 ain't bad, and we're batting 500 years. So, um, I just continued to write the blog, and what I found where I was going with all that is what I found by writing that blog and pushing send every Tuesday. I don't have a boss. I don't get paid. There's nobody in the world who expects it of me except me. But by pushing send every Tuesday, I'm holding myself accountable. So that discipline of making 100 clean free throws before I left the gym still exists in my life. And it's become a forcing function for the one thing that I said I wanted to. It was my goal of every day when I left the coaching world, and it was to live deep in substance. This will shock you, but there's a lot of superficiality in the world of college athletics. Shocker, right? Boom. Um, in athletics in general. But there's this core that's not, this core that's really real. And I wanted to live in that way more than the other. And in searching for things to write about, you just kind of, you find what you're looking for. That old saying, you will find what you're looking for. Well, if your gaze is always for things of substance, you just find things of substance. And then you write about them. And so you're living in them all the time. So it's been a forcing function to achieve that goal. And I didn't even realize that's what it was at the outset. So I'm writing the blog, going along, working on a second book, and get a couple of God winks, shoulder, elbow, and then tap you on the shoulder, and then hit you over the head with 2x4. And people saying that the blog had really impacted them, like the story happened right at the time I needed to read it, or I was really struggling with this, and then I read your blog, and I thought about looking at it in this way. I had several of those in like a 2-week span. And so I said, well, maybe I'm supposed to put all these in a place where somebody could find them together. And so I created the compost file, Stories for the Striver and Saul. That was book number 2. And the title came from a literal folder that sits on my laptop computer that I'm talking to you through right now, and it's called Compost, and I've had it for years. And in it, I just throw stuff that I don't have time to finish working on, that I might be a paragraph that I liked, paragraph that somebody wrote that I disagreed with, something that made me curious. I just chunked it all the stuff that was good stuff.
It made
Yeah,
you feel. It
in
made
my
you
brain.
feel
Right,
something.
right. Into the file, and, then I would go back and pick through that, and that's where I would come up with the topics that I wanted to write about in the blog, and so, I titled the book The Compost File, and it's stuff that's made me grow. The stories have made me grow, and so I think in sharing them, my goal is to help other people grow, and so that's, kind of how that transition came to be.
That's awesome. I have to ask, what's the hesitation with social media? So where you did 2 of the 3 that they told you to do, I'm gonna pull my inner coach out and ask coach, what is it that held you back from doing the thing that whether is it just it's too much work, or is it not something you're interested in, or just curious?
Both. I don't wanna walk around with my face in a phone. I don't want to scroll. I can't imagine, sitting in a chair at night and scrolling through my phone. I don't wanna do it. I think that I would get into it and do it all the time because I'm kind of a, "If we're
All
gonna do it,
in,
we're gonna do it,"
a
and
trier.
yeah, absolutely, and I don't want to be that's not where I wanna spend my time. I know that you can curate and you can get the voices that you want to hear, and you can be exposed to the things that feed your soul or whatever. I would rather it's kinda like, I would rather live it than view somebody else living it through my phone, and so, it's just a personal thing, and I know it keeps me from selling a lot of books and probably getting a lot of speaking engagements, and that's just a trade-off I'm willing to make because I know more than anything how I want to spend the minutes and the hours of my days, and scrolling on a phone is not on the list.
Yeah, when you're talking about substance or impact, as I often use the word impact all the time, that's really you're searching for and working towards that kind of level of impact, and you're attracting the things you want in your life. And the more of that keeps coming in, and obviously the books have been a great benefit to reach more people and to get the things that are on your brain out, and you're able to spend more time with your grandchildren, which is a great thing too. I mean, that's not a I mean, having a next chapter should be redefining what's most important. What is our priority
No
in that
question.
next chapter, and then moving forward. And if the priority is met, then everything else is secondary. You can't have more than one priority.
No question, no question, and I think where we get disillusioned and frustrated and, um, doubtful, where we struggle is when we're not clear about what we really want. We say we want this, but then we really don't those things are not important enough to us to get that. What is it that we really want? I kept a sign, it was a calligraphy sign in a frame on the end table next to the sofa right inside my coach's office. So when players walked in, the first thing they saw was the sign, and it said, "What makes your heart sing?" And I would ask freshman players in our one of our early meetings, if not our first early one-on-one meeting, "Tell me what makes your heart sing." And they would, of course, want to disappear from planet Earth. Like, they would just like, "Oh my god, I'm not gonna answer this question." And most of them would say basketball, and I would go, "Oh, yes, I love basketball too, but what about basketball makes your heart sing?" And it's asking those questions to yourself. What about being a nurse makes your heart sing? Why what is it? What about writing makes your heart sing? It's not editing the stories to get to the final copy for the publisher, I guarantee you. It's the creation or the exploration of an idea or the getting clear of a thought and a alignment of a process. What really is it that you want? And the thing that I feel so good about at this stage in my life is I'm very, very clear about what I want my days to look like and about what I wanna do, how I wanna spend my time, where my priorities are.
That's great. With you spending, as you know, Hall of Fame women's basketball coach. How fun has it been to watch Caitlin Clark and what she's been able to accomplish? Or is it just more of an outside thing? Is she like the Taylor Swift of basketball? From a guy's perspective who never watched women's basketball, I literally found my brother and my dad and I watching a game together over spring break. And we're like watching the whole, like everything Caitlin Clark's doing, we're watching and we're engaged. And, sometimes it's a spark, just something different that's drawing you in. Maybe it's the media, maybe it's the coverage. I don't know. But I'm just curious from a professional with your background, how that impact on women's basketball, and maybe your opinion on it.
Well, I think it's fantastic, obviously, and this explosion of women's basketball has been amazing. When my first year at the University of Oklahoma was the first year of the Big 12 conference. And in that first conference meeting that we had, it was at the Broadmoor in Colorado Springs. We're sitting at a table. I will never forget it. There's this unbelievable display of the Rocky Mountains out the windows. And we're in this conference room, this beautiful resort. And a few weeks earlier or months earlier, I'd been coaching at Norman High School in a cinder block locker room, under the bleachers in the North Gym. And I was sitting here like, what has happened? Where am I? But around the table is Jody Conrad, Marcia Sharp, Marion Washington, Seal Berry. I mean, it's literally like Mount Rushmore of women's basketball. We're sitting around a table and we're talking about every school, every women's program is going to get 2 televised games. We're going to get one at home and one away. And I think Texas and Texas Tech might have gotten 3 or 4. And everybody in the room was juiced. I mean, this was amazing. Amazing. Okay. That's where we were in 1996 when I got the job. When I left in 2021, if every single game of ours was not televised, I'm losing my mind on somebody, this, and it needs to be not just regional, it needs to be on a major network. I mean, that's the difference. Then just fast forward in the last Caitlin Clark years, the last 2 to 3 years, um, the WNBA has just exploded. And I get asked all the time, is Caitlin Clark the greatest player to ever play? Well, that's so hard. That's like, which one of my children is smarter? I don't know. It just depends. They're so different. But I think about Diana Taurasi, who I had an opportunity to coach in USA Basketball. So I've been on the floor with her a lot. Sue Bird, Shamiqua Holtzclaw, these unbelievable players. And if you want to go even before that, Nancy Lieberman, and you want to go all the way back. But
she was an ODU, right? Wasn't she ODU?
yes,
Yeah, because
yes,
I'm in
that's
Norfolk,
right.
Virginia. So I was going to say Nancy's name
That's
because
your
I remembered watching that growing up.
Oh, she was unbelievable. And so you have this long list of female players who were amazing in their own right, but they didn't get the platform. And so my answer is I don't know if she's the greatest player of all time. She was the right player at the right time. The world was ready for that, for her skill set, for the game of women's basketball that had been building. You have to be ready when the moment arrives, and the sport was ready, and then it just exploded. And it reminds me a lot of when Connecticut took off, when Gino got Connecticut going, they won their first championship. Well, there was this little conglomerate called ESPN that was in Bristol, Connecticut, which is just down the road from Storrs, Connecticut, where the University of Connecticut is. And it was this perfect storm. Gino had a heck of a team. They had these amazing, relatable athletes. Jen Rosati was the point guard. Rebecca Lobo was the center. And they were easy to fall in love with. They played hard. They were highly skilled. You had that. It was this magical little thing. But it running into ESPN and those two things connecting caused this explosion, and Connecticut just went nuts. And women's basketball went with it. It took women's basketball with it. And then it chugged along for a while, and then you come along and you've got a Caitlin Clark, and she takes, and here we go again. So I think that's just sort of it's a growth pattern, if you will, and something that I'm so glad that our athletes now have an opportunity female athletes have an opportunity to play professionally and not have to go overseas, and I know that battle is still ongoing to get the wages up so that they don't have to do that in the off season, but it's great for them to have that opportunity now.
Well, and if you think about that progression you just named, the NBA went through the same progression. You can go back to, Bill Russell and those guys of the Boston Celtics in that first iteration with Red Auerbach and the coaching that then you go into Larry and Magic, and then you go into Jordan and then LeBron. And these were all turning points in the game that allowed the game to elevate to a new level. And when you're watching it and you watch it all the time, like I did as a kid, you don't realize it's not even as popular as it will become. Like that's
You
even
can't even
crazy.
imagine. You
No.
can't imagine another level. I mean, I grew up, Bird and Magic, and I thought Magic Johnson was the greatest player to ever I mean, I just loved everything about what he saw and what he had the ability to do about what he saw,
Yeah.
and I couldn't imagine loving basketball more. I couldn't imagine it being any more popular than then. I still have a Lakers T-shirt that I had in when I was in high school, and it was because of Magic. But then, fast forward to this past year, and the Oklahoma City Thunder were amazing,
Yeah.
and I don't know that I've ever enjoyed watching a team play more than I enjoyed watching them play. Completely different type, completely different style, if you will, than back in those, Laker dynasty days, but beautiful basketball, and you just it's hard to imagine when you're in the middle of it. You said it best. It's just hard to envision it being more popular than it is at that moment.
Yeah, I took my oldest son. We were at a soccer tournament a couple years ago. The Magic, we were in Orlando. We went to a Magic game. I got like the couple rows back from the floor. We were just off the floor. The GM Brad Stevens actually sat 4 rows behind us of the Celtics, and then he got to like high five all the players as they were going in. I mean, it was a cool experience, but the whole experience was so fun. It was interesting. He got to see the fun of being at a game versus watching it on TV are completely different. And that was the other energy, the way that the game has evolved with the music and the fun and the family atmosphere. And it's just a it's cool to watch the evolving of anything. And hopefully college basketball will evolve in a positive way. It's always been such a great breeding ground of
Yeah.
great humans and athletes, and that become great humans and other things. So
Certain.
um hopefully we can continue to watch it. You have more and more stories to share with the world, to share with us. And it's been an honor and a privilege to talk with you. I've enjoyed it. Tell people how they can find you, because they're not finding you on social media, but they can find you everywhere else. So where do they go to find you?
Mostly in Norman. They can find me at sherrycole.com. It's so funny when I started to build a website, they said, "What do you wanna call it?" And they said, "It needs to be your name." And I'm like, No, I'm not gonna call it my name." And the people I was working with said, "How will anyone find you if it's not your name?" And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense. Okay." So it's sherrycole.com, which sounds narcissistic to me, but anyway, that's how you find me. And I have a weekly blog that's free. I just started a Substack account, though I know nothing about what I'm doing. But anyway, I am there, so you can find me there as well. And I speak around the country and, do a little bit of consulting with, coaches and with corporate leaders, through the Learning Leader show with Ryan Hawk, and, love the work that we get to do there. A fantastic team, talented group of coaches, and just love the work that we get to do there. So I'm just writing, talking, leading, and playing with grandbabies. That's what I do.
Well, it sounds like a great life. What a storied career. Sounds like still much to come. Sherry, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. It's been fun to talk to you.